Amanda pried open the shed, and the stench hit her like rotting breath. Then, beneath the darkness, came a scream. Not animal, human. Her dog backed away, trembling, as something inside whispered her name. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Amanda awoke the next morning with the faint, unshakable feeling of having missed something important, like a word muttered in a dream that clung to the edge of her mind. She stood in the doorway, robe cinched tight, cradling her mug as dawn spilled a pale orange haze over the frost-laced grass. Toby sat by the shed again, head cocked, tail rigid. He hadn't barked since midnight, but the stillness around him was worse than the noise. Not a bird called, not a branch creaked. It was as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. The scratches were visible now, long, uneven gouges in the faded wood of the shed's door, low to the ground, too low for a person. Amanda knelt, reaching out to touch the grooves, her fingers brushing splinters as cold as bone. They weren't just marks of impatience. They were desperate, carved with such force that flakes of paint had curled back, revealing raw wood beneath, like wounds split open. She stood and tried the door again, half hoping the lock had rusted through. No luck. The iron padlock remained unyielding, its surface blackened with time. Her reflection warped in its curve, pale face, dark eyes, the deep grooves of sleepless nights beginning to form. She stepped back. The shed seemed to lean toward her, subtly, as if eavesdropping. Inside the house, Amanda pulled the property paperwork from the drawer where she'd shoved it months ago, determined to finally read through what she'd ignored. Floor plans, septic diagrams, property lines. But nothing about the shed, not a single mention, as if it had grown there on its own. Later, while grading essays by the fire, she caught Toby staring, not at the shed this time, but at the back wall of the living room. His ears pricked, every muscle tense. He barked once, low and unsure, and then began to growl, the kind of growl that vibrated from the gut. Amanda set her papers down. The air shifted, cold and damp, though the fire burned strong. She walked to the wall, touched it, dry, but she smelled it then. Earth. Not dust, not rot. Soil. Damp and fresh, like something just unearthed, like a grave opened too soon. She leaned in, pressing her ear to the plaster. At first, silence. Then, barely audible, a faint, rhythmic scraping. From inside the walls. She pulled back sharply, heart pounding, throat dry. Toby whimpered and curled into a tight ball by the hearth. Amanda didn't sleep that night. The cold air from within the shed hit her like a slap. Not the musty stillness of disuse she'd expected, but something ancient and wet. It carried a rot so layered it was almost sweet, like fruit left to ferment in a cellar full of bones. Amanda staggered back, retching, the crowbar slipping from her hand and clanging against the threshold. Toby barked behind her, but he wouldn't cross the invisible line at the shed's mouth. His body trembled, hackles raised. Yet he stayed rooted, eyes fixed inside with terrified devotion. Amanda forced herself to look. Darkness, deeper than night. Not just the absence of light, but the presence of something that devoured it. The beam of her flashlight barely cut into it, swallowed before it touched the far wall. The moaning had stopped the moment the lock broke, cut off mid-breath, as if whatever had made it now watched, listening in silence. She stepped inside. The wooden floor groaned beneath her, like it hadn't held weight in decades. The air was thick and unnatural. Amanda felt it against her skin, not just cold, but crawling, clammy, as if invisible insects moved across her arms, beneath her clothes. The smell clung to her lungs, her throat, left a sour film on her tongue. Shelves lined the walls, but they were bare, save for dust so thick it seemed alive. Toward the back, a pile of something slumped in the corner. A tarp? No, not quite. Fabric, maybe canvas, soaked and molded into a dark lump. She crept closer. the floor seeming to sag beneath each step, protesting. Then she saw them, claw marks, not like the ones on the door. These were inside, scored into the floor, the walls, the beams overhead, deep, angry furrows, crossed and recrossed in violent spirals. She crouched, ran her fingers over them, raw wood, freshly exposed beneath. They were new, and then the sound again, not a moan this time, a clicking, dry, deliberate, from the far wall. Her flashlight flickered. She turned it slowly onto the back wall and saw that the boards were bulging outward, subtly warped like pressure was being applied from behind. Just as she realized that, one of the planks cracked, a long, splintering line racing across its length. Something was behind it, something pressing. Amanda stumbled back, catching her foot on the crowbar, landing hard. Her breath came in sharp, frantic bursts. She scrambled to her feet, dragging the door shut behind her and jamming the crowbar through the handles. Toby was barking now, wild, frenzied, circling her, trying to herd her away from the shed. The clicking stopped, but the stench followed her back inside. The house did not feel like hers anymore. Even after the investigators left, after the sirens had faded into silence, and the yellow tape flapped loose in the wind, Amanda could still feel the shape of Eli's suffering in the air. It clung to the wood grain, hung in the shadows where the hall light didn't reach. The shed had been padlocked again, this time by the county. But the stench was gone. In its place, something colder. Grief, maybe. Or guilt, so pervasive it soaked through her sleep, her skin. She barely remembered speaking to the boy. The image of him, the way he shrank from light, the way his eyes darted like a hunted animal's, was carved deeper than anything words could reach. His fingers had been blackened at the tips. Malnourishment, frostbite, or just too much time clawing in darkness for something that wasn't coming. His voice had broken when he said his name. Eli. Nothing else. Just that. Like it was the only piece of himself he still believed in. Amanda's hand still shook when she thought about the journals. Not the handwriting, which was steady and neat, but the tone, clinical, detached, as if Harold Brewster had been filing maintenance reports instead of documenting the slow erasure of children. Eli learned not to speak above a whisper. Kept him on the leash today. He's still trying the lock. The smaller one cried all night, not as strong as Eli. Each line a blade, dulled by repetition, but no less cutting. She couldn't stop imagining them. The other boys, the ones no one had noticed missing. No school records, no photos, no names that stuck. Their bones had been stacked beneath the floor like forgotten tools, curled together as if they'd tried to keep each other warm in death. Eli had survived. Toby had made sure of it. Day after day, barking, whining, scratching like his paws were trying to dig a hole through steel. He had dragged Amanda back into the world, snapped her out of the sleepwalking grief of her divorce, forced her to look, really look, at what was right under her feet. She hadn't rescued him. He had rescued her. And now, in the stillness after the storm, Amanda stood at the window and watched the shed. Rain tapped softly on the glass. Toby lay beside her chair, ears twitching even in sleep. Somewhere out there, Eli was healing, eating real food, learning to speak again. Amanda hoped he would never return to this place, but she would never leave it. Not until she understood how no one had heard the scratching sooner. The first night Eli stayed in Amanda's house, the silence was different. Not heavy, like the silence that had blanketed the shed. Not empty, like the silence after the screaming stopped. This was a breathing silence, a fragile, newborn thing, the hush of presence rather than absence. Amanda lay awake in the room across the hall, listening to the soft, steady rhythm of Toby's breathing from Eli's bed, where the boy had fallen asleep with one hand curled into the dog's fur. She didn't sleep much those first few weeks. She cooked more than she ate, moved more than she rested. Her home became something else. A sanctuary, yes, but also a watchtower. Every creak in the floorboards made her shoulders tense. Every knock at the door felt like it might be someone coming to take him back. But Eli stayed. The boy spoke rarely, and only when he wanted to. His words came like leaves in wind, scattered, careful, but each one rooted deeper than the last. He liked eggs with too much pepper. He hated the sound of microwaves. He would stand at windows but never open them. He once asked Amanda if monsters knew when they were being watched. When he smiled, it was almost always for Toby. Amanda wrote each day, not to retell the horror. They'd all read the court transcripts, the news articles, the sanitized version of what had happened, but to document what came after, the slowness of healing, the strange intimacy of two people learning how to coexist in the space left behind by someone else's violence. She wrote about triggers, how they appeared in unlikely places, the hiss of a radiator, the smell of old wood, the sudden click of a doorknob in the dark, but also about small victories. Eli laughing when Toby stole his sock. Eli painting the shed door bright yellow so it can't hide anymore. The townspeople gave her space. Some brought casseroles. A few apologized for not noticing, for not asking more questions. Amanda never held their silence against them. She understood now, evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears familiarity. But light, when it returns, is blinding. Not gentle, not soft. It scorches. It exposes. Amanda lit her house like a lighthouse. No curtains, no shadows, not anymore. And when people wrote her, asking how she had known, how she had dared to open that door, she always gave the same answer. I didn't know, but Toby did, and I trusted him.